you got your degree?
UC Davis.
UC Davis.
My PhD at UC Davis.
Okay, very good. I almost went there. But I didn't, because I wanted to meet her, and I had to go to Hawaii to do that. Okay, Gerry is the county extension agent for Southern California floral
San Diego.
crops and nursery crops. His area of specialization is irrigation management, nutrient management, in soils and in artificial media. And his presentation is right here. Take it away, Gerry.
Hello, my name is Gerry. I'm going to try to wake you up. There is also coffee over there. And, oh, there is no coffee over there. Then the task is even harder. The task is even harder. I wanted to tell to the previous speaker that the person that they sent to Brussels to say enough with regulations, we also want to borrow them, and then we'll send them to Sacramento, so we'll achieve both objectives at the same time. I see that my friends from California are laughing, and everybody else is puzzled. I am the advisor for nurseries and floriculture here in San Diego. It's a big county. We are currently in Riverside County, but we are maybe 4 miles from the county line, like 3 miles from the county line. And yesterday you were in San Diego. So Temecula is not in San Diego County, but yesterday all the cultivation that you saw and all those nurseries that we were driving by, they're actually in San Diego County. And so my job is to advise growers in San Diego County, mostly about irrigation things. And yesterday, I met a lot of you, and this is an outrageous group of cool people, and we were driving by with the bus, and I was like, oh no, that's a Verde, oh no, that's a Moon Valley, no, that's a Grab and Nadler. And I got the feeling that except some of my friends here, but everybody else does not have a good appreciation of the industry in San Diego. And so I threw in this slide last night that now nobody can read, and it's the feeling of standing in front of a slide that nobody can read with 50 people in front of me is just it's an experience that you got to try. But here, no. So San Diego is the largest county for nursery and greenhouse and floriculture production in California. And we are the second in the nation, the second in the United States.
Who's first?
Hawaii.
No, it's not. Who's first? Who wants to tell me?
What?
Who said Florida?
Washington State. Florida's here. She said.
Miami. Miami is number 1. Who would have thunk? But we are second, and the value, if you could read up here, is 1.2 billions. 1.2 billions, and by comparison, fruit and nuts here, you get 200 millions, 300 millions. So we are like 4 times larger than the second crop, and this is both avocados and citrus altogether. And these are some numbers from other large counties. I'm missing Riverside, I believe, here. But the total is is close to 3 billions. And if you compare to the other crops in California, we are somewhere here, maybe above the pistachios, maybe below the pistachios, but we're here. So if you remove animal products, we are the 4th crop in California. Now, apparently CDFA hasn't figured that out, so if somebody can tell CDFA that we are the 4th crop in California, I would appreciate it. So we're not there. We are invisible. We're the forgotten child of California agriculture. And my job is to advocate so one day we'll be here in this list right above the pistachios. My talk will focus on trying to answer a number of questions that you may have or you may not have, and you probably don't have, about irrigation. In the United States, we have a system made by NRCS, and you can go on this website that you cannot read, and you click on this button, and you will develop this map that you cannot see, and is about the soils that you will find in an area of interest that you can select. And I know that you will trust me on this. This is Rainbow, and this is Pala. And so yesterday we were driving around all this area here where a lot of outdoors production for cut product is concentrated. And you will be able to see, they will tell you what kind of soils do you have. And if you keep clicking through, you will learn other things about those soils. Now this is an advanced group, so I'm not going to bore you with the saturation and porosity, but if the soil was a fuel tank, there would be some water up here on the wet end, on the upper end, that you cannot use because the soil drains. And there is also some water in the low end, on the dry end, that you cannot use because it's held by those small pores too strongly. And I see people nodding, so I'm kind of out of a job today. Everybody knows that. But so we use some of the water in between that we call available water, or some people call it water holding capacity. But this is where the analogy of the tank kind of breaks down. Imagine a car that drives faster on a full tank than on an empty tank. That's your plant. And so for this reason, typically we only use half of that available water. Or if you're growing a carrot or a celery or something that likes to grow on the wet end of things, maybe you're going to have only 20% of the depletion. So this depletion is kind of a question that you need to answer yourself. But in general, if you have a sandier soil, you will have about 1 inch per foot. If you have a clayer soil, you will have about 2 inches per foot. And I apologize, as you can tell from my accent, I'm a proud San Diegan, and so I use American units, and I apologize to all those snotty Europeans out there that think that the metric system is better and we Americans should also adopt it. But there I put also the percentage. So 8% is about 1 inch per foot, and then we said we use half of it. So really it boils down to ½ inch per foot if you're on the sandier side, to 1 inch per foot if you're on the clayer side. Questions? So then you go on with all your soil analysis, and you will get this crazy map with all these colors, and again, this is Rainbow, and this is Pala down here. So yesterday we were here, and there is a lot of different soils. But whatever your available water it is, if you could only see these numbers, you could see that the lowest that you ever can get is about 8%, unless you go on the riverbed or on the beach or something like that, right? Some horticultural field. And the highest that you can get is about 17%. So we go back to that 1 inch per foot on the low end to that 2 inch per foot. And again, we use half of that. Now I'm going to throw at you some numbers that you also cannot see. Let's say that I have my plants spaced 5 by 5. I don't know if that's true. Somebody earlier said 5 by 8. Let's say it's 5 by 5. So I've got one plant and 25 square feet. And so I've got 1,700 plants per acre. Let's say that here I have a polyethylene hose with 2 emitters. Each emitter put out 1 gallon per hour. So I've got 3,400 gallons per hour per acre, or 58 gallons per minute per acre. Now it turns out that 27,000 gallons per acre are 1 inch, and so if you divide by that number, you get the application rate of 0.13 inches per hour. So if I run my irrigation system for 1 hour, it will apply 0.13 inches. Does it make sense? More or less, 1/6 of an inch, more or less. How much is that? 5 millimeters, 4 millimeters? something like that. Now, in reality, that water doesn't wet uniformly all that field. It gets concentrated around the plant. And it's kind of difficult. It's something that you can measure or you can observe. And using a thing like this will help you learn a lot of things about the shape of this wetting pattern. But in general term, if you have a clayer soil, it kind of looks like an onion. And if you have a sandier soil, it kind of looks like a carrot. Does it make sense? Pass this thing around. Don't hurt yourself. Don't do this at home. Okay, so then let's say that you convinced yourself that you have, on those 10 feet, you got 2 feet there, and so it wets 20%. So now the application rate, since I don't wet the whole field, is 0.64. It's not 0.13, it's 0.64, because I only wet there. So I use only 20% of that. And so then you can say, okay, I'm going to wet my soil. I'm going to start irrigating when my soil has a water content of 25%, and I'm going to bring it back to field capacity at 35%. This will be like something loamy, clay loam. So I'm applying 10% of the volume of the soil in water. So if my root zone is 24 inches, I'm applying 2.4 inches of water. And so then I can divide this number by my application rate, and I will learn that when I irrigate, I run my system for 3.7 hours. So this is very powerful, right? You run some numbers like this, and you learn a lot. You learn how much water your soil can hold, and you learn how long you irrigate when you irrigate. So it's very powerful, right? It doesn't work, but in theory, it's very powerful. No, well, I don't mean it as a joke. I mean, sometimes it's not easy. Not always theory then matches in with reality, right? So there may be some adjustments. But this is how you can kind of go about it. You can also, and I recommend you do that, monitor directly moisture or monitoring directly tension. You can use a thing called a tensiometer, and here I put my friend Gerry, because for many years he has been an advisor for avocados around here, and he talked about tensiometers a lot. How many of you have seen one of these before? How many of you have used one of these before? Pass them around. So this thing is full of water, and you can look at the gauge. It develops some tension. And back in the day, I used to deploy a lot of this in the field, and this is no joke. To convince myself that the gauge was working, I would just take the cap off and suck on it and see that it was moving. And so if you dare, you can do that too. I haven't put my mouth on it recently, so you can dare. But you will learn experientially. You will learn experientially how that thing works, right? It's just a vacuum gauge. It measures the suction that the soil develops on that porous cup, right? And soils, for whatever reason, when they get dry, they suck more. So when you touch an octopus, you feel like it sucks on your finger, right? So I always thought as a young student that the dry soil should feel like an octopus. I don't know why it doesn't, but if you put that tensiometer in the soil, it sucks. It literally sucks on that porous cup, and that suction is measured by the gauge. And if you dare taking off that cap very slowly with a lot of love, and you look at the hand of the gauge, you will see that as soon as some air gets into the tube, you will see that the hand falls down to 0. So if you want to try and do it, if you are listening, I don't know if you were. But anyway, this is a system this is a very powerful instrument. It's cheap. It doesn't need batteries to run. It runs on water. It lasts for a long time. The limitation, it can measure only up to 80 kilopascal. So it's an instrument that measures a very wet side of things. So again, if you grow broccoli, it's probably a good instrument for you. It's good for wet crops, celery or carrots or something like that. You probably don't want me in that picture, huh? It's a similar system that my friend Troy is going to talk about a lot, so I'm going to just mention it as a watermark. It's made by the same company. It can measure dryer, and it also measures tension. And I'm going to just leave it at that. You can also use volumetric water content, with sensor, with volumetric water content sensors. The nicer thing of this is that you can use the result to have a balance like I did here with the volume. If you measure volume and you know how much volume of water you need to bring the field back to field capacity, then you can calculate the volume of water that you need. With attention, it's a little bit more complicated. You need to talk to a guy like myself. I don't want to bore you with moisture retention curves and things like that. You can also use a technology called the shovel and dig a hole, and I encourage you to do that. You will learn a lot of things. It's incredible how many things you will learn by digging a hole in the ground. And again, with that probe also, it's very good because it allows you to sample only in one point, but at the depth. And finally, NRCS also has a lot of material to learn how to measure volumetric water content by feel. And I used to make fun of it. I used to not believe it, make fun of it, until I've seen people that can take just a sample with the probe and touch the soil and tell me this is 20%, or this is 30%, or this is 40%, and it's very powerful. And it takes a long time to teach yourself how to do it. First, you need to learn about the texture of the soil, and have all these rules like, oh, if you touch it and your hand gets stained, then from here go there. Then if you make a ribbon and you can make the ribbon more long than 2 inches before it breaks, all these weird little rules, and then you learn from that what's the volumetric water content. Questions? So your soil is your tank. If I'm driving to San Francisco and I have a car with a really big tank, or if I'm driving to San Francisco and I have a car with a small tank, with the small tank I'm going to stop for gas more often, and with a big tank I'm going to stop for gas not as often, but the total amount of gas that I will use only should depend on the MPG of my car, the miles per gallon of my car, and how many miles I'm driving. Does it make sense? So if you have a sandier soil, you only irrigate more frequently with smaller quantity of water, but the soil texture, the soil type should not affect the total amount of water that you should use, unless the plants are stressed. Now, scientists have a lot of free time, and they employ it to, well, I didn't mean it as a joke. They employ it to invent some weird words, and one of them is evapotranspiration. So they said, well, there's a process called transpiration, which is water that goes through the plant, and there's a process called evaporation, that is water that evaporates from the soil and other surfaces. And they said, well, the variables that drive these processes are the same. Who want to tell me what are the environmental variables that drive those processes? Wind, sun, humidity, we're missing one. Temperature, thank you, there are those 4. So you can measure those 4, and with some energy balance model that I'm not going to bore you with, you can calculate how much water evapotranspire from a surface. And they do this for grass. So they decided, oh, let's make a model that can tell us We can measure variable with the weather station. We can measure those 4 variables that you just said, the sun, the wind, the air temperature, and the air humidity. And let's calculate how much water a flat surface of grass will use in a day or in a week. And here I downloaded some data from a system that we have in California called CIMIS, California Irrigation Management Irrigation Service. And I plotted it here, and you cannot see it, for 3 stations here in San Diego County. And here we get about ½ inch per week, which is, 12 millimeters per week?